We're here today for another edition of Drive-By Politics. Today we have Dan Claitor. He's a candidate for the State Senate in District 16 in Baton Rouge. Dan, the race is Saturday, the election Saturday. What's been going on?
We've been working real hard. We've been working the phone bank. We've been walking neighborhoods. We've been up on TV, up on radio. Was at a forum earlier today. Was on TuneIn this morning. So a lot of activity, big flurry as we come to the end. And it's been real nice where people are responding to our message and appreciate that they have a local boy in the race. I spent my entire childhood in the district and walked to school in our neighborhood. Highland School had great teachers like Miss Scriber, and we had a principal, Geraldine Wall. My grandmother was very involved in the library aspect, and that we had a bookstore in town and would help the schools raise money through their book fair, and they would buy their books from the family. Went on to Lee High School, graduated from there in 1979. We had a pretty fair football team, a proud graduate of LSU. I started out as an English major because I thought that would do well in the family publishing business, and that I would work on editing some of our manuscripts, and very involved in books, always been a big reader. But the more I thought about it, finance seemed like the right thing to do, and I went on and graduated with a degree in finance. From law school, I went to work as an assistant district attorney. I didn't get paid much. I actually remember the figure. It was $18,951 a year, but it was the best job I ever had, where it was very satisfying work. I worked with youngsters that had terrible things done to them, and at the end of the day, when you put away these child predators, you felt pretty good about it. I also worked with old people that were victims of crime. Eventually, I rose in the ranks there and became one of the strike force prosecutors, and I concentrated on prosecuting drugs and crime.
If I'm not mistaken, the LSU and the Pennington Biomedical Center are in this district. What plans do you have for them?
Well, we have to protect LSU's flagship status. Whenever there's a budget crisis, there's always this hollering and screaming about we have to cut, but we're limited to cutting in healthcare and education. So LSU always seems to take the largest hit on this. We have to protect LSU's flagship status.
Let's talk a little bit about the Pennington Biomedical Center. I heard that pile driver going in the background when we started the interview.
Yeah, and I was so pleased to hear that. Most people would be disturbed by that in the interview, but the truth is that thump, thump, thump of the pile driver to me is the sound of progress. I live within earshot of the Pennington Biomedical, and I hear that sound at home. I also have my office within earshot of the Pennington Biomedical, and that's just a great thing that we're investing in the Pennington Biomedical Center. The mission of the Pennington Biomedical Center is nutrition, and from there we're going to have great scientific discoveries as far as a healthier Louisiana. But if we don't fund Pennington properly, it'll never get there. We have to help Pennington reach critical mass, and once it does, it'll be able to carry forward on its own. But we can't give up on Pennington, just like we can't give up on LSU. I've been very fortunate in that. Both of my grandmothers were teachers. My mother's mother was a teacher in central part of Louisiana. My father's mother was a teacher here in Baton Rouge, in addition to running her bookstore. I'm having my 30-year class reunion from Lee High. I was the president of that class, in addition to being lucky enough to be on that great football team. And I'm calling my classmates, and we're talking to one another, and they're calling in from California and South Carolina. They're calling in from as close as Livingston and Ascension, but I'm not getting very many phone calls from our district. And so I asked them, why do you live where you do? And almost universally, the answer is, I can't afford to educate my children in Baton Rouge. And I asked them, what do you mean by that? And they say, well, I can't afford the private schools, and I can't afford the public schools in the sense that I think I'm doing my child a disservice with some of the public schools here. So we're losing my classmates, your classmates. To start off with, we can't expect to attract business to Louisiana if we're losing our own. So we have to make a fundamental change in the education system. Now is not working. my son put together a Facebook site for me, and he said, "Dad, give me some favorite quotes." And I was just kidding with him, but he put it on there anyway. But it's true. One of my favorite quotes is, "Hesitation killed the cat." And if we continue to hesitate, we're going to get run over just like a squirrel in the middle of the road, not knowing which way to go. We have to take an approach. Is the answer vouchers? Perhaps. Is the answer charter schools? Perhaps. But we can't sit on our hands any longer on this. We are doing a disservice to our children, and we're doing a disservice to our business community.
Well, Dan, I read in The Advocate this week where you had a perfect voting record for the past decade or so, unlike your opponents.
That's true. I do have a perfect voting record, and it's actually for longer than the past decade. She told me, well, our records show that you've voted in 30 out of the last 30 elections. I don't think that is anything spectacular myself. I think that's your civic duty to go out and vote. People of my father's generation fought and died. People of our generation fought and died, so we have the right to vote. So I take my voting seriously, and it's not something new to me. I've been voting regular since I was able to vote.
The last few years, there's been a concentration down at the Capitol on ethics reform. What do you feel about that?
Well, I think that certainly falls into economic development, where I travel a good bit, and I expect many of your viewers travel a good bit as well. Can you hear the pile driver now? We're hearing the sound of progress there over at Pennington. But in my travels, sometimes people would question me about being from Louisiana, and we were viewed in many parts of the country and many parts of the world as a laughing stock, really. And I'm proud to be from Louisiana, proud to be from Baton Rouge, but I am not and was not proud of our record as far as ethics. So I couldn't be more pleased that our governor has initiated a program for more transparency and ethics. We need to provide incentives to business that make sense. What I mean by that is, if we give a business incentive, we have to get the appropriate return. There was a big article in the paper this morning about how the film industry has brought, I want to say, $786 million in income to the economy. That's smart, and that's something that we need to do, and there are other opportunities. There's issues about passing your business on and selling it. There are issues about taxes on machinery and manufacturing equipment, and then there are issues about providing tax incentives to those that provide health insurance to their employees. Business is not our enemy. We need to encourage it, with the end result, the end idea being creating more taxpayers, not more taxes.
Well, Dan, what makes you different than your two opponents?
Well, one, I am from the district and I have the institutional memory, and just being here the longest doesn't by itself mean that you should vote for me, but it does mean that I am very, very familiar with the issues, and I've seen the good results and the bad results. It also means that I can plan toward the future from what I've seen in the past, but it's not an issue of I've just been here the longest. I have an outstanding voting record. That certainly makes me different than the others. I have graduated from our public schools. I'm an LSU graduate. Neither of the other candidates are LSU graduates. I have a finance degree. Neither of the other two candidates have that. I have a law degree. And some people would say, man, who needs more lawyers? And I can appreciate all the lawyer jokes, but the truth of the matter is that when you're in the legislature, you're passing laws in addition to budget. So I have the financial background and I have the legal background, to where I'm able to look down the road and see how it not only will impact business, but impact law enforcement, impact education. So I bring the proper skill set to the equation, and I bring the right institutional memory. So I want to thank you for having me on your show. It's been a lot of fun. Pile driver has stopped, and I'm going to head on out and walk some more streets. Thank you very much.
Thanks for being with us, Dan.